Hello, everyone, and welcome to another amazing segment of Sound Mind here on Hope to TV. Let me first begin by saying thank you so much for your views every week. We appreciate what you're doing to help spread this type of information that focuses on mental health. We don't want you to just be physically fit or financially stable. We want you to be emotionally and mentally well enough to enjoy the fruit of your labor. I want to give another shout out to Dr. E. Dewey Smith, our executive producer for Hope TV, and for this show. Thank you so much for all you do and for your leadership. Now, go in the comments, tell me where you're watching, where you're from. I want to know where you're watching from. We are so excited to have you with us today. And we're going to jump in. I want to bring back an amazing woman. She's been our guest many times, Dr. Margie Gill. Hello, my friend.
Hi, how are you?
I am good today. I am in a better place. I've been practicing my breathing. And so I'm in a much better place this week. How are you today and this week?
I am well. I engage in some form of self-care daily to relieve some of the stress that I am subjected to on a daily basis. So that seems to help. So I'm doing well.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. So, Dr. Gill, let me tell you, our conversation last week was so vibrant. And if you haven't had the chance to go and watch that yet, please go to Facebook or YouTube and check that out last week with Dr. Margie Gill as we wrestled through the conversation of trauma. Dr. Gill, today I want to jump right in and have a conversation about generational trauma. Now, I'm sure we can hit this in many different ways, but I think I want to start by asking the question, in your expertise, what would you say, or is there a difference in the experience in trauma based on age?
Based on age, is there a difference? With trauma, it depends on that experience. And when I say it depends on the experience, I mean, someone who's been subjected to trauma at the age of 5 may not express that exposure to trauma in the same way that someone who is 65, who has also been, subjected or exposed to some type of trauma. And that's because over time, we learn how to express ourselves. Age does make a difference, but from previous research, it does show that if you have been exposed to so many different types of adverse childhood experiences, your trauma response may also be different, but there will be some type of response. So age doesn't play a role in, how you will respond. It's just that you learn over time, and a 5-year-old has only been here for 5 years. So the only way they know how to express trauma may be to shut down, or maybe to act out in agitated or aggressive ways. But that goes the same as that 65-year-old. They may do the same exact thing.
So a real quick question, how small, you talked about we can become accustomed to experiences, and it's based on our experiences that can sometimes correlate to the level of response we have, how long we've been alive. But I think, especially within the Black community, we have normalized a lot of things that are traumatic, and especially individuals who were our older generations, they've lived through literally this current time we're in right now. Is there a possibility you can ignore trauma and still be negatively affected by it?
Of course you can. Yes, you can.
Talk to me about it, Dr. Gill. Talk to me about it. Help us.
You can ignore trauma. You could minimize it. That does not get rid of it. What you are doing is setting yourself up and your future generations up to experience the same type of response, the same type of emotional states. You're teaching the people to come how to respond. So if you ignore it, you're teaching those next generations to ignore trauma, to not really address it. And that's one of the common themes within the Black community, people of color, is to silence what they've gone through, to silence those voices. I look at it this way. Some people may be in denial. They don't want to acknowledge it. They pretend as though it never happened, but yet it's still their response to it, whether it's not being able to have a healthy relationship, whether it is spilling over into their workplace environment. They don't know how to really socialize with colleagues. And then they wonder why they are not considered a team player. If they minimize those experiences, they are saying, oh, it wasn't that bad. That does not get rid of the negative effects of that trauma by ignoring it or minimizing it.
It's funny you say that, because especially like within our community, we are known, or we are, and we laugh about the uncle and the experiences with the uncle that nobody wants to talk about, or the cousin that nobody wants to talk about, either whether it's abusiveness, whether it's molestation. We as a community tend to silence it and hide it and not address it. Is there a reason for this culturally?
Yes, it is. This goes,
Help us, Dr.
Brian,
Gill.
this goes all the way back. And some people, I don't know how we can have American history without talking about what some Americans have endured. Black Americans. Woo. That part of history has been completely erased. But you can't ignore the experiences of Black people. So let's go all the way back to slavery. So if you go all the way back to slavery, look at the maltreatment of Black people when they first came here to this country. Do you strongly believe the torture, the rape, all of the inhumane things that happen, it would just disappear, and then you have a generation, or you have a population of people that are just, oh, they're good now. No, it doesn't work that way. All the way back when mothers were separated from their spouses and their children, and they were sold off, and it left some mothers in situations where they had to be the sole provider. They had to be the caregiver. They had to be that strong woman, and they were working in all these multiple roles. Do you not think she was subjected to trauma? That's trauma. It's been passed down from generation to generation. That mother then had to pass down learned behaviors to her children, how to appear strong, how to appear unbothered, how to carry the load of responsibilities that were not really made for children to carry. What happens if dad is sold? What happens if I'm beaten in front of you? What happens if I'm raped in front of you? How you respond. These things have been passed down from generation to generation.
And we give people trophies in our culture who can endure and be the strong person through it. And I am worried, Dr. Gill, about, it's really a cycle of oppression that's within our community.
Yes, it is. I briefly wrote about this a few months ago, about how systemic racism, sexism, classism, all these stereotypes, how it perpetuates the suggestion that Black girls and Black women induce their own victimization. This research suggests that all of these different levels of oppression, how it's mind-blowing that how can you say somebody deserves to be oppressed? You can't say that. You can't say that. So from a Black woman's perspective, we always want to appear strong. You got the strong
Mm-hmm.
Black woman phenomenon. Well, in that
Mm-hmm.
identity, Black women are faced to mask their true feelings. They can't show
Mm-hmm.
emotion because they will be considered weak. They take on all of these responsibilities that they know they should share with other people, hold other people accountable. But we have to appear strong because this has been passed down from generation to generation. Because we had to stand up, we had to fight, we had to do those things to care for our family when nobody else would. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Brian, it's just so much information. I zone in on Black women because I can relate to that. That's my lived
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
experience. And with the strong Black woman phenomenon, you have research that suggests Black women fall into three categories. And I said this before. It tears down the true identity of what Black women stand for. So you have the mammy. The mammy is the person in the community that nurtures everybody. She's the caregiver. She loves on everybody. She's the one who provides when nobody else can provide. Then you have the Jezebel. The Jezebel is manipulative. She's promiscuous.
Mm-hmm.
She wants her
Mm-hmm.
body. Then you have the Sapphire. Sapphire is the angry Black woman. She's the one who emasculates the Black man, puts the Black man down even further. And if you look at it, these stereotypes follow Black women around until you prove that you don't fit one of these, and then you're just labeled as strong when you don't fit those stereotypes. And that's exactly what they are. We have emotions. We have feelings. It's just that the deck of cards have always been stacked against us since we were brought here to this country.
I'm so glad you even took the time to pause and reflect on the plight of Black women. And I think as we start to talk about having a sound mind, I am now learning about the trauma that women face in childbirth, pregnancy, during labor, and post, and how they are dying. The mothers and the children are dying in all three of those stages. But I was not aware because, yes, I am Black and I am a Black man, but the Black female, the Black woman has so many more burdens in places that we don't understand. And I think, Dr. Gill, what I want to just pause and say for those in the comments, if you know a woman who is supporting and keeping things going, and you see they are under pressure, help relieve them. Celebrate them for who they are. And I love what you said, Dr. Gill. The title Strong Black Woman becomes a trophy that has a negative connotation attached to it because they don't fit those three categories. It's sad.
Yeah, and it really is. It's a negative connotation. You want to be considered the strong Black woman, but you are sacrificing your own mental health just for that title. Is it worth it? Who's distributing these titles? I always tell other Black women, people will tell me, "Oh, Dr. Gill," or for my friends, they may call me Margie. Margie, you are just so strong, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm human. I have my good days. I have my bad days. I get tired too. Because I'm human. But all of this stems back from what we were talking about was this generational trauma. To name some things that took place during colonialism, you had the consideration that we were already inferior. That was one of the main things. Poverty, malnutrition, disease, economic exploitation. It's just a plethora of things that were just piled on top to just make the situation even worse for not only Black women, but Black men too. So it's just, and then, so even if you were reared in a household where there was a mom and a father, that does not mean you were still afforded the same rights or privileges as white people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, you were categorized by your skin color. And we're not even going to go into the topic of colorism, what we experience within our own culture. That's
Dr.
another
Gill,
topic.
Dr. Gill, listen now. That's a whole nother topic, but it needs to be, because what we're really talking about today, our conversation has now been formed around breaking the cycle of generational traumas. And with Black women, how do you break a cycle when it's celebrated?
That's the hard work. That's the hard work that the person who wants to break that cycle, they have to do it. But first, they got to recognize that it's toxic. Some don't even recognize, how toxic it is to be trapped in trauma that you really don't even know exists. So when I'm working with somebody, I do this thing called a genogram. Okay, so what is a genogram? It's like a family tree that I put out, but it's very detailed. I show connections in relationships. I show the connections in, like the family history. I go back as far as the person can remember. And you would be surprised at the aha moments I get in therapy with people when I show them, this is a pattern. Not only did this happen to your grandmother, but it happened to your mom. Now it's happening to you. And all three of you have the same exact response. So we got to change this response in order to break this cycle so that we can protect your children from going through a similar experience. So I do a genogram, and the genogram shows those patterns in relationships, patterns in sometimes even the physical. Because see, our physical body tells us a lot about trauma that we tend to want to always ignore.
Talk to us, Dr. Gill. Explain this to us.
Okay, so with trauma, you release this stress hormone called cortisol. At the impact of that first trauma, when that trauma first hit, there's normally a spike in cortisol levels. Cortisol determines your fight, flight, or freeze response to that trauma that you are experiencing. Now, over a prolonged time and a prolonged period of being exposed to that repeat trauma, your cortisol levels drop significantly. And this is found in people who have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, what does cortisol normally regulate? It normally regulates blood pressure. Okay? It normally is found to control like swelling in the body. There's a lot, the health food gurus, they're talking about how certain diets eliminate inflammation in the body. But that inflammation was started by it could be started by some type of trauma.
Wow.
So no matter how you change your eating habit, if you have not successfully resolved that trauma or addressed that trauma, that swelling is not going anywhere. Because now we're talking about on a genetic level. So let's talk about serotonin. You got serotonin is another hormone that's in the body. Okay, so what happens when you are stressed? That serotonin level, it drops. It drops significantly. Serotonin contributes to depression, anxiety, poor eating, poor sleeping. You need all of that to function.
Oh, I feel like you
You
talk
know,
about my whole life right now, Dr. Gill. I feel like I'm just I'm about to turn into a session. We're going to have to log off. It's because I need to, is there anybody out there that's like, you feel what Dr. Gill is saying? Keep going, Dr. Gill. My apologies.
no problem at all. I just want people to understand why some physicians would suggest medications to bring these levels back up. They're only masking the impact of something that you are currently going through. They're only masking and treating the stress response to a stressor or potentially past trauma. If you don't address it, you'll always be on that medication. If you don't learn how to control it, how to manage stress, how to manage the impact of that trauma, then you will be on that medication to help control these hormones that I'm talking about. Serotonin also helps regulate mood, sleep, digestion. These are the things that keep us normalized. Serotonin also helps regulate your mood, your emotions. So when you have this drastic drop in serotonin, how do you think your systems will respond? They're all out of whack.
Yep.
You know, it wreaks havoc on your immune system. That's why you are more susceptible to catching anything that's in the air when you are under stress. It's because of these stress hormones.
Wow. Wow. That's good, Dr. Gill. That's good. And so what I'm hearing is that there is a outward reaction to inward turmoil.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So much so that you learn different behaviors and how to express what you're going through. So you are outwardly expressing something, but guess what? Internally, you're also expressing something because your genes are being restructured. Your genetic factors that are inside, they are not fixed. So the more trauma you are subjected to, or trauma period, it does change your genetic expression. So what happens when you have somebody's genetic expression or their genes have shifted, have changed, they're now modified due to this trauma. This person gets pregnant, have a child, that child is born with an altered genetic makeup. So that shows the physiological transport of that trauma at the genetic factor, and that child just came into the world and don't know what's going on.
But already repeating the cycle because of that.
Yes. Yes.
So what do you do, Dr. Gill? Where do you start? Where do you and when you're dealing with, we're in a culture where we give trophies for trauma. Where do you start in the process? Because you said to begin with, you've got to pinpoint the traumatic event and face it. But how do you pinpoint it when you don't know it's even traumatic? You think it's normal or have been told it's normal. I was watching I was reading through Twitter about some women expressing what their traumatic experience in college was. And I told my sister, I said, I read this is crazy. She said, oh yeah, it's a normal thing to be a woman and go to school and have to hope you don't get raped while you're there for your 4 years. And for me, I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing, something that you had to hope and pray for, that didn't happen to you, but it's a reality. So where did we start, Dr. Gill?
You know, my mom always told me to have friends who build you up. Have friends who are there to support you and who will call you out on your mess and not always say yes. You see what I'm saying?
Won't call you out on your mess and won't always say yes. I like that.
That's right.
I'm gonna take that one.
You can have that one. That one is for free, because that's some good advice. And if it has been normalized, if rape culture has been normalized, that's a problem in itself. And it's up to us as the older adults to teach the younger adults you don't accept everything that's thrown your way. No, you don't have to accept that. No. Mm-mm. No.
Message for somebody out
That is
there. You got to teach that, though. I love what you said. You have to teach that.
because all of this is learned. All of it is learned. This is not something that we are born innately with. It's not. Not at all. Everything that we're talking about right now is learned behaviors, unless you're talking about, the epigenetic factor of trauma being passed down, internally. But everything else, that's learned. And it doesn't help it that society, caters to even more layers of oppression. You have implicit bias. We're not even going to talk about implicit bias. The associations that people have about certain groups of people based on stereotypes. It's been taught so much to people of all cultures that sometimes it happens and we don't even know it's happening because it's so normalized.
Yep.
And implicit bias is all learned. All of it is learned. And it's usually associated with race, gender, age, background. Somebody asked me, well, what's the difference in implicit bias and racism? Well, implicit bias is unconsciously you are holding these stereotypes, these biases about a certain culture or group of people unconsciously. Whereas racism, it could be explicit, it could be implicit, it could be,
all of the above.
All of the above. It's like you don't even care, how racist you are. You just come out with it. You have prejudice against a group of people based on their race, on their skin color, on their cultural underpinnings. You just don't like the people.
I saw a post that said racism is so American that when you try to destroy racism, people feel like you're trying to destroy America. And I had to sit there and pause and reflect it. But now what you're saying, it makes sense. It's just passed down and it's repeated over and over again. And unless you unteach it.
Yes.
Unless you say, no, this is not a normal behavior. I'm going to make a turn right here, Dr. Gillen. I'm probably going to get in trouble. They may not let me come back next week. But I remember I even remember like growing up and even watching my nieces and nephews grow up now and listening to the music and the things they hear and the things they watch and how subliminally they are being taught that things are normal when they're not. There was a post today that said, what songs were you singing at 12 that you shouldn't have been singing? I'm not going to go through my list because I'm holy, glory to God. But no, I think back on some songs I was singing growing up and I was like, I had no business watching The Best Man at 12, 11 and 12, especially in a culture that didn't talk about sex or sexuality. So what can those of us that are now raising nieces and nephews, people that are raising their children and grandchildren, what can we begin to do that's common to our culture, but how do we start to identify when things can be toxic and we're not accustomed to it?
Here again, it's all in that teaching process. As the older adult, as the more experienced adult, it's actually reaching back and wanting to. Some older people don't want to have nothing to do with this younger generation because they sometimes they feel like it's just a lost cause, it's a waste of time. But it's that intentionality coming out again. You have to reach back and you have to teach what's right from what's not right. I'll share a little bit about my birthday was last week. And for my birthday, Yeah.
Happy belated birthday, Dr. Gill. Happy
Thank you.
birthday to you. Happy birthday. I'm sorry, I had to do it, y'all. Okay, your
I know
birthday.
it. Yes, and my children came home on the weekend just to wish me happy birthday. They cooked dinner for me, and they brought friends with them. And I'm like, I must be okay for the friends to want to come and hang out with me for my birthday. So for my
Yep.
birthday, I was hanging out with some 23, no, let's start from the youngest, like 19 to 23-year-olds. Okay?
Wow.
Yes, and they had a good time to a point where I had to tell them, okay, it's time for y'all to go home. But I took advantage of that. Yeah. I took advantage of that situation of them being here.
Mhm.
That was a moment that I could impart some life stuff in them that they'll hold fast to. They were teaching me about their music. And so I was like, so when you listen to this music, what does it do for you? You know, is this the type of music that's going to get you to where you want to be in life? And so, you know, they were like, no, but it just has a good beat. I said, can you take a good beat and turn it into something else? And they were like, and so then we, you know, tried to freestyle stuff and, you know, but it was relating to them on a level in which they could relate. You know, so that's one of the first steps. But, and it's okay to lead by just turning off the TV if it's something that's inappropriate that children would be watching.
It's that simple?
Turn it off. It is that simple. Turn it off.
Wow.
Don't even give the option. See, that's the issue. It's too many options that's given. And, you know, you hear people say it time and time again where the parents are now trying to be their children's friends and they are not leading. You know, parents got to take that back and they got to lead. But here again, you have some parents who don't know how to lead. Because of the trauma that they have been subjected to all of their lives, they're stuck. Their brain is stuck at that age and they don't know how to proceed.
Now, I want to pause for a second because you said something and our time is so limited, but it gets so good on here with you. You said they get stuck at that age. What does that mean?
When that trauma hits, the brain goes into protective mode. So they're stuck right there with not knowing how to respond in a manner that is healthy, a manner that is appropriate. Instead, they shut down. They shut the brain. They're responding based, remember those hormones. Serotonin does impact memory. Serotonin impacts the cognitive functions, how you communicate. So if your learned response is shutting down, that's what you will do in any stressful situation. You will shut down. If you run from it, if you get agitated and just say, I don't want to deal with it, that is your response. So it filters over into other situations. So that's what I meant by when I say it shuts down your response.
That's good. And it's good because for some, there may be some 35-year-old out there that's still trapped at the trauma of 13 and wonders why there's a barrier that they can't overcome, but it's because they're trapped at that place in trauma. How
Exactly
many,
right.
I don't know if there's research on it, but what percentage of individuals would you say have experiences like that where they're trapped, don't know that they're still there at that trauma, haven't addressed it? How common would you say that is?
Oh, it's extremely common. There was a study that was done. It's called the Adverse Childhood Experiences. And in that study, it showed, I want to say it was either 60, it was over 65% of people who participated in that study, and it was tens of thousands of people. over 60-something% had experienced at least one type of adverse childhood experience. Now, that same study showed that if people had experienced 7 or more adverse childhood experiences, 20 years would be cut off of their lifespan.
Woo!
That's drastic. Wow. That's drastic. I'm talking about if you've ever been, if it ever happened to you, or if it happened to somebody you knew who was close to you and you witnessed their response, things like sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, emotional abuse. If anybody in your household had been incarcerated or sent to jail or prison of any sort, if there was a presence of mental health issues in that household. So all these numbers add up. And if you were at 7 of those things on this table, this checklist, research says you would be subjected to a shortened lifespan due to the physical trauma that your body reacts to. Yeah, I mean, and this is stuff that people carry around like it's nothing.
Like it's nothing. You were going through your list and I'm going through, well, this happened to me and I saw this and, oh yeah, I was there when this happened and, oh yeah, I saw this and, oh, this happened to me and I'm already at 5 or 6. I'm just going to schedule a session sometime next week. We'll work on that. But no, for real. And I know that we reach an audience that's more than just the Black and African American community. But for the Black and African American community, it's so common to experience these traumas. My sister's an assistant principal with KIP here in Atlanta. And one of the things they do is they take their new teachers around to see the neighborhoods the children are in. So I participated in a drive-by during COVID-19 where the teachers did a parade with their cars and they went by and just waved at the students in their neighborhoods. So we pull up to a neighborhood, Dr. Gill. The prison is literally the window view of an apartment complex. And you're telling me that they are born into an environment where their numbers are already adding up just because of where they're geographically based.
Exactly right. They're born into an environment that's already putting them at a disadvantage. And in that same community, they may have subpar schools that's not functioning at, at the levels that it's a thriving learning environment. Some schools don't have fully stocked computer labs with the most updated technology. I did here again in my same research, I did a little brief review of some of the academic discrepancies among school systems right here in the metro Atlanta area. And let me tell you, you would be so shocked at what I found. Some schools don't even have different, like higher levels of mathematics, of the science, and so the students are starting out at a disadvantage. And I will say this as a college professor. As a college professor, I can always tell in the writing samples of some of my students who will need a little bit more support than those who won't need the support. It's evident. It's clear. Do I knock them for that? No, I don't. No. What I do as a professor, every professor, they don't do this. What I do, I go through somebody's paper. I will fully edit the entire paper they submit. Grammatical errors, give them suggestions on rewording sentences, how to incorporate more research, APA style. I teach them in a paper so that at least they have a template that they could go off of. Everybody doesn't do that. So that's my challenge to other people who work in higher education. Don't be quick to judge the students. Teach them. You're in that position to teach. I'm sorry, something
It's
is
okay.
distracting.
It's okay. That's your child. That's your child. And it's okay. Dr. Gill, I appreciate having this conversation of breaking the cycle of generational trauma. Can you, our time has run out for today. If you've enjoyed this, let us know in the comments. Dr. Gill, can you give us a nugget, a piece of wisdom to take with us this week as we process what you shared with us today?
Yes, I can. And I always like to leave, on a positive note.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to know that you are loved and you can heal. There are no problems that are too big that you cannot get off your back. You got to learn how to let go. We have an audience of people who believe in a higher source, a higher power, God. Pray about it, meditate, but don't just pray about it and then after that prayer get up and still keep thinking about it. You got to learn how to pray about it and give it over to that higher source. Meditate, find that peace for you. Go out, get some fresh air. Go out, get some sunlight. Vitamin D has been shown to help regulate serotonin levels. To increase serotonin, find an exercise regimen. That's correlated with increasing serotonin. Even though you know how I feel about that. But exercise is vital. Certain foods, be mindful of your diet. We started with talking about colonialism and how our ancestors, they weren't given the best quality of food to eat, if you know what I mean. We were given the leftovers. We were given the remains from the hog. So they turned those chitlins into one of the best dishes that people eat. I don't eat chitlins, but some people eat chitlins and they still eat them to this very day. They don't think about the content, but be mindful of what you are putting into your body and the impact that it has on your body. A healthy diet. Eat foods that increase serotonin, pineapple, nuts, salmon, cheese, eggs. All of those things contribute to increasing the serotonin level. And I just want them to know there are therapists out there who can help. Find a therapist. There are modalities of treatment. It's a treatment called EMDR. It's called eye movement desensitization reprocessing, because that's what it does. It's reprocessing that trauma you have experienced into something that you would be able to cope with. I can't say get over, but it helps you manage the symptomology that's associated with that trauma. You have clinicians out there who know how to do trauma sensitive therapy. Find a therapist. Therapy is okay.
It's okay. It is okay.
It is okay. It is okay to have somebody to talk to. It's okay.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gill. And let go. I don't want to miss it.
Let go of that superwoman cape that you want to wear. As a Black woman, hang the cape up. Take the cape off. Be loved on. Let somebody love on you. You don't have to be the one that's always giving out. Let somebody love on you.
I love that. I'm not going to say anything else. Specifically Black women out there, but all women. You don't have to wear the superwoman cape. You are human. If I get just the Black women in the comments to just say, I am human, own that, and let someone love on you. You are worth being loved on. Well, Dr. Gill, thank you so much. I love you. You are a superhuman. I love you, and I'm grateful for the gifting you have in helping us navigate through these conversations. And thank you so much for tuning in today in another segment of Sound Mind. We are so happy you joined us, and we can't wait to see you again next time. Until then, take care and protect your heart so that you can have a sound mind.